and so we want to keep up this tradition today. So we are very glad that this is still alive. The idea is to bring young ideas from universities into companies, and also to understand what problems companies have, to bring it back to university. So this is a very nice format that we are having for several years right now. Yeah, you know the topic for today. You guys developed ideas around the hydrogen economy. We want to help hydrogen ramp up in the market, and there are several ways to do this. And we also have several ideas from different perspectives that address the problem how to ramp up hydrogen more efficiently, or in a niche, or to bring it forward in terms of sustainability, or also from financial perspectives. So we are very looking forward to this case. It's not that easy case, because the hydrogen field is very broad. So the main challenge was to nail it down. So we will see is addressed in this service portfolio. Yeah, we don't have time in talking about us, but we want to see the idea. So the first idea is regarding hydrogen heating system services, and we want to welcome Mr. and Ronne, and thank you very much for being here with us.
Before you start, remember, loud and clear, so even the people in the last row can hear you, because you don't have a microphone. And there's the presenter. Just click to the right, or if you want like a laser pointer, you can just click in the middle.
You have 20 minutes, and wish you good luck.
So, good morning, everyone. We are Francesco and Angela, my partner, and today we are more than happy to welcome you to our presentation for the case competition 2021-2022. And today we want to present our service portfolio with regards to the hydrogen heating system services. So, what's in for you today? We want to bring up to your attention as first the analysis that we have made to basically connect the external elements that characterize the hydrogen heating systems market and link the main capabilities and resources into NORD that can be a strength entering in this kind of market. Then we will present our service concept and our value proposition, and then we will go on with our strategic and marketing plan, taking into account also the operations needed to provide the services. And finally, we will analyze some financial predictions that we've made together with a risk analysis that aims at testing the soundness of our proposal. So, Germany is well aware that hydrogen can be one of the main vectors to decarbonize the economy, and actually the heating systems in general is one of the most, the hardest industry to decarbonize, since it accounts for actually one third of global energy use, mostly used for heating. Although this is a real problem, hydrogen heating systems have just a small share of the entire hydrogen market, and heating market itself, because it's mostly a nascent industry. But in the last couple of years, several use for H2 systems are now being trialed, and they have been demonstrated efficient. And the main options revolve around the options of blending hydrogen into existing gas pipelines to bring hydrogen into our homes, and the fuel cell technology. So we also ran a quick pestle analysis to understand how the external factors are influencing the hydrogen system market ramp up. Of course, we won't have time to point out all the elements in this analysis. We are more than happy to answer your questions afterwards. We will just point out the main one. And it's clear that from the political side, Germany and Western Europe in general are the countries that are most ready to welcome this market. And from the economic point of view, it's true that hydrogen is still not cost competitive compared to natural gas. And this, from the social point of view, has many consequences, because consumers suffer a too high premium to install hydrogen heating systems right now, and technology is not accessible. And from the technological point of view, we know that in the last couple of years, hydrogen-ready boilers have started to pop up in northern countries in Europe, and also fuel cells have become more and more efficient over the years. From the legal side, there are still missing technical harmonized standards that will basically facilitate the adoption of the technology. And from the environmental point of view, we need to make sure that the hydrogen used as a fuel comes from a green way, so from renewable electricity. And we also ran a green analysis to find out which are the resources, the capabilities in NORD that can be decisive in the hydrogen heating system market. And we listed two main ones, the expertise and the brand reputation, and we believe they are very valuable, very inimitable, and non-substitutable entering in this market. As far as the expertise, the fact that it's been acquired over 150 years of history, and it is also one of the most extended in the market since the many industrial customers that NORD have, makes it also a very inimitable resource since history makes it hard to replicate. And of course, it's a key resource in the testing, inspecting, and certifying industry. While for the brand reputation, we believe it's very much linked to the expertise, actually. And NORD has been a stronghold in the German market that allowed them to get a large market share and also an extensive knowledge that they got through their expertise. And that's why they're stable to their consumers, their customers. We know that hydrogen economy applications are affected by uncertainty, and of course hydrogen heating systems are not excluded by this uncertainty. So to propose our service concept, we wanted to highlight the different possibilities that are available right now using the lenses of the technological portfolio innovation matrices in order to understand which are the main technological options that NORD could scope into to understand which are the better alternatives. And this matrix measures in terms of market uncertainty and technological uncertainty the two main technologies options that we wanted to analyze, so fuel cells. It's not working. Okay, it's there. Fuel cells and hydrogen boilers. So as you can see, they both have a medium-high degree of market uncertainty since their efficiency is still being tested and investigated for a heating system. But as far as fuel cells, of course, they are a well-known technology for many years, so they have a lower degree of market uncertainty. On this slide, you can see that although the technologies present a high risk, both from the market and technological point of view, we wanted to highlight that the services that can be built upon them are several, and we actually believe that these services can be diversified, and at the same time, the risk can be spread, and the profitability opportunities providing these services are several. So we propose to NORD to adopt a diversified service portfolio in order to maximize the profitability opportunities while reducing the risks. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see all of the services we want to propose, and on the left-hand side, they are mapped in another matrix, which is the relative service matrix that measure in terms of forecasted demand and technological competencies needed to perform the service. Of course, some of them will be harder to perform, but the profitability opportunities for these services will be higher, while some of them are easier to perform, but of course, the premium input to customers will be lower. As you can see, as far as the hydrogen boiler system, the main concern will be to ensure that hydrogen-ready boilers will have to be capable of sustaining a higher share of hydrogen during their product life cycle. And as far as fuel cells, it's very important to inspect them periodically due to their low life cycle and ensure the feasibility of installation. As you can see, we also listed technical consulting services, which is common and a sort of preliminary service to the ones we listed, since we believe it's very important to provide customers before the beginning of the service with the most efficient alternatives they can use to the installment of the heating system. Here you can see our unique selling proposition, which is based on 4 distinctive elements. First of all, the uniqueness. NORD will be basically the first quality certifier in an industry that greatly needs quality assessment and technological safety. Then, also thanks to the technical consulting services, NORD will be able to manage all the necessary steps needed to arrange the installation of heating systems, while also ensuring that the customers comply to environmental regulation and have a safety guarantee on their technology. And also, always thanks to the technical consulting services, NORD will be able to provide a personalized planning based on the financial request of the customers and the building type they're living in. So the strategic plan, which is maybe the most important part of our idea, it's basically based on the differentiation competitive advantage that NORD could bring into the hydrogen heating systems markets. As a matter of fact, we believe that NORD, as their main business point, enable competitive advantage with their industrial customers thanks to their quality certification and assurances. And we think that bringing this differentiation game into the hydrogen heating systems market could be even more far-reaching, because they could add value in the supply chain, both upstream and downstream, by basically assuring quality and safety and also easiness of access to the technology, but also helping technology suppliers to not to develop new capabilities to inspect the safety and the technological readiness of their product, instead just focus on manufacturing at large scale. Also, it's very important to gain new competitive advantages while entering in a new market, and we believe that NORD can be a true first mover in this market, since there are actually no players available right now. And by doing that, of course, we gain the typical preemption advantages of the first mover, which is the possibility to create an ecosystem and to lock in demand once the services are, the demand for the service is stabilized. The opportunity to exploit economies of learning, thus gaining a cost advantage once the services become much more commoditized. It's also easy to be perceived as a quality and innovation leader once you are established in a market as first, and also being the first to market, it's easier to create customer loyalty at the beginning of the provision of the service. As far as implementation, which is a key point because execution is very important in this plan, we want to point out that as to be a true first mover in the industry, NORD should secure key relationship and resources before the market infrastructure actually is built, thanks to government and incentive support. And also the price point should signal competitors that NORD brings a cost advantage to the market, in order that the service that we propose are not basically imitated. And at the same time, in this Gantt chart, you can see that on the right-hand side of the slide, we provided a set of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bounded objectives that we believe are important to develop the further plan of while entering the market. Now, Angela will talk about our marketing strategy. Thanks for your attention.
Hey everyone, also by my side. So, who are our customers basically? Our target market is made up of property developing and property management firms in the real estate sector, private homeowners and local authorities. Indeed, our services are basically addressed to all those residential, commercial and local authorities buildings that want to join this transition to a more environmental friendly heating systems. And that by relying on the services offered by NORD, we'll have the possibility to enjoy these services, but without having to worry about the safety of the heating system that will be applied, of the appliances, and about worrying about finding suppliers and technicians. In our opinion, all the services offered by NORD should be strictly connected to the preferences of the customers, to the type of building, and also should be personalized in order to ensure both safety and efficiency. So we basically identified 4 user personas, each of them with a specific use case, and therefore particular solution proposed that came out from the technical consulting. So, for example, we have a possible use that is the modernization of detached house by private homeowners, or also the apartment building modernization by property developing and management fields. In order to boost these services, we identified two important promotional initiatives, according to us, that should be taken in parallel. On one side, we have, since this market is still developing, we thought it was important for NORD to enter one of the many demonstration projects that are around the world in these years, in order to establish the presence in the market and make the services known to customers and authorities. And on the other side, it will be crucial to find some business partners on the technological side, like the suppliers of the components, or also the technicians that in the first stages maybe have to instruct the NORD employees. For what concerns the revenue stream gained by NORD, it would be in the form of a paper service, so they will collect basically the payments coming from the specific services that they will offer. And as you can see, the global annual demand currently is for hydrogen in its pure form is 70 million tons per year, but with for example, blending solution, it shows some potential increase per year of 12 million tons per year. Then basically in the operating plan, we tried to translate the strategy into an everyday plan of activities that NORD should be put in place. So what are the skills and resources that NORD should put in place in order to provide this portfolio of services? And we can schematize the main operations in these 4 points. First of all, there is the identification of the service type. Then there is the instruction of the experts and on-site technical consulting and the provision of the specific services. As you can see, there are 2 different points in which NORD will get money from the services offered, and I will explain the reason in a minute. Okay, so basically to highlight the relevant processes to bring these services to the end consumers, we used a service blueprint, and I'm sorry for the quality of the image, but it's the best we can do. So we reported basically all the actions that have to be taken, and we specify the actors will take these actions and whether the customer is involved or not in the process. The starting point is basically the request for the services by the customers, and it is an activity that can be performed through different channels. For example, filling out an online form on the NORD website, through a call to a call center, or just through an email. Then there is probably the most important step made by NORD, that is the analysis of the request, in order to identify in advance which kind of services will be required in order to be able to put in place the most appropriate experts in the field. Then the NORD experts will be instructed to perform an on-site technical consulting, and they will show customers the results of the analysis, whether the project is feasible or not. They will also show the potential estimated cost. And they will also have to illustrate customers the next step, because at this point the customer can choose if they want NORD to arrange all the further steps for them, or if the customer want to arrange the next steps by themselves. If of course the customer doesn't want to proceed with NORD, they will just pay the consulting service, and the contract will be over. Otherwise, there are some further steps, because the expert of NORD will be in charge of forming a team to perform the services, depending on the different use cases, as we said. And in case of installation of the systems, they should also recommend some suppliers of the technology and cost alternatives to the customers. Okay, then in the financial plan. Okay, in the financial plan, we try to estimate the capital and operating costs needed to start this business and also some sales projections. We basically made all our assumptions based on the 2020 financial statement of NORD. And as stated in the marketing plan, the demand for these services is potentially huge, but it will depend a lot on the incentives of the government and some government policies to reduce the price of hydrogen and sustain the technological adoption. So we basically assume that if the total demand for hydrogen is of 25% in 2050. We assume that NORD would be able to capture 70% of this total request, and therefore we forecasted an increase in sales by 2050 of 17.5%. As you can see, this value is a bit lower by 2030 because we believe that the real increase in sales would be between 2030 and 2050 because the market will be more likely ready for this with the technological infrastructure, better technological infrastructure, and also an increase in the demand. Okay, for what concerns the capital expenses, it's of course really important for NORD to make some effective upfront capital investment in order to be able to successfully achieve all the targets that we set in the strategic plan. One important point is that the portfolio of services should be scalable in order to ensure high quality of these services to every customers. And in order to do so, NORD will need to increase its number of employees that are experts in the hydrogen field. So we basically assume an increase in the number of employees of 2.4%, and considering an average training cost of 810 euros per employee, we estimated this amount of training costs. Okay, so then we estimated mainly three components of operating expenses that will be increasing for NORD. First of all, as we said, the increasing wages due to the hiring of new specialists in the hydrogen field. Marketing expenditures will increase as well because marketing will be crucial for NORD to establish its position in the market as the best service provider. And also some coordination costs to ensure the key relationships among suppliers and consumers, because we believe that this industry will be strongly based on a tight ecosystem of these kind of relationships. Okay, so basically we said that the real market ramp-up will be likely after 2030, so it's really difficult to estimate the potential cost after this year due to inflation, learning effects, and economies of scale. So we say that NORD should limit its cost increase of 8% per year in order to be able to reach a return of investments of 14% by 2050. Okay, of course, nothing comes too easy because entering this business comprises several risks. One of the main one is related to market uncertainty due to the fact that the price of hydrogen today is actually non-competitive compared to the one of fossil fuels. There is also chicken and egg paradox that characterize this industry because there's some uncertainty on the demand side that doesn't stimulate suppliers on the supply side to improve their service portfolio, and therefore we think that these transactions should be incentivized by government. And also there are some questions about the actual feasibility of these hydrogen-based heating systems because there are some conflicting opinions among academics and practitioners. For what concerns our risk analysis, we made scenario analysis. We have a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. The best case scenario is the one in which the technology is widely adopted. Governments invest a lot in this technology. Manufacturers are able to reach economies of scale and to manage to establish its position as the best service provider in this field. And they could reach the break-even point by 2030 and return on investment of 14% by 2050. The worst-case scenario is the one in which the market face for some technological feasibility. There is no demand for the services. Governments might realize that it's not worth it to invest in such application for hydrogen, so they want to invest in something else. But NORD already invested in training for employees and marketing campaigns. So since they do not realize any profit, they might decide to disinvest the project. To conclude, we think that NORD could play a key role as a facilitator in these transactions, both in a B2B and a B2C scenario, thanks to their strong network of relationships in the industrial and then consumer field that can help boosting these services and distribute these services faster for the consumers, but at the same time it can help suppliers to place these products and services in the market at a higher pace compared to the current situation. That's it from our side. Thank you for the attention.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much for your interesting insights into the hydrogen heating system services market. And now we're open for questions. Do you have any spontaneous questions in your head? Yes.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the presentation. I really enjoyed it a lot. There was one part I was wondering. I mean, you're making statements about the price point. And making sure that others could not imitate what we do. If I understand you correctly, you're suggesting that if I take your use case personas on slide number 10, take the detached house owner, replace all gas condensing boilers with H2 compatible ones. And I think that the action of replacing those would be done by the technology partner, right?
Yes, actually, it is exactly like that. But we were thinking about the proposition of the solution, which is made by NORD. So basically, everything revolves around the technical consulting services. So whenever a customer needs to install their new heating system based on hydrogen, NORD will have to inspect the most efficient system that can be based on the use case personas that we provided here. And so the proposition of the solution would have to be proposed by NORD, and then if the customer wants, can request to NORD the replacement, and NORD would have to arrange all the necessary stuff with the technology suppliers to replace the old technology with the new one.
Okay, so in that sense, the obstacle for the technology partner to just offer the service by themselves is that they don't stand for safety. That's what I understood.
And they stand, of course, they stand for safety, but they need to develop new capabilities to ensure the safety of the technology. While NORD is an expert.
And your key point to prevent competitors from taking this model is you said that by making sure you get the necessary resources and you build like consulting services that are not so easy to replicate.
Yes.
That's the part that would make it difficult for SGS, for instance, to enter the market.
Yeah, exactly. As well.
Okay, good. So I think the consultancy part.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure, but maybe another question on your sales, projected sales. And I first had to understand that there's a K after the euro that made a huge difference to me. So yeah. I see that let's say you have the steepest part of the curve is after 2040. So looking at the current crisis situation that we're in, and especially for Germany, the shock that a dependency on gas might not be the wisest thing that we've ever done. Do you expect an acceleration of this? So do you think as a result of what we're going through right now, this could happen earlier? What's your point of view on that?
We were actually talking about this because of course we provided the project before the crisis happened. This is actually a very good question, thank you. And we think that actually it could be accelerating because in our opinion, Germany, of course, if it would be to establish this kind of hydrogen system market, the demand would be very, very huge. And if Germany, in their hydrogen strategy published in 2020, they wanted to establish themselves as one of the key producers of green hydrogen in the industry. But with this kind of increase in demand, they will be still dependable on the import from other countries. But we believe that the main green hydrogen producers are all in the Euro area, so in the Western Europe countries and Northern countries. So the main partner won't be more on the maybe the Scandinavian countries, which are ready to provide these kind of technologies, for example, with the blending solution. So yeah, it is possible that the curve could be steeper before 2040.
Maybe because this crisis is also teaching that relying completely on another country for what concern energy supply is not that good. We come from Italy, so Germany and Italy depend a lot on Russia for gas.
So the conclusion of your car discussion was that it will probably accelerate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Will probably accelerate.
Yeah, I also have a question. First of all, thanks a lot for this very detailed insights and all your thoughts. I have a very generic question. You have started with the topic on hydrogen heating system. I'm wondering why it was so. So what has been your trigger that you have decided, let's go and let's recommend the colleagues, the guys from the NORD group, and to also focus on the hydrogen heating system. So is that attractive compared to other fields? So this is what I'm wondering, why you decided to go for this specific industry segment or market.
What stood out for us when we were reviewing documents to basically start the project was that the heating industry in buildings is very hard to decarbonize, and so we thought that one of the best thing to do in this area was to apply the concept that we wanted to basically create the hydrogen heating system to this market, because since also consumers right now are much more aware of their environmental impact, they would basically be much more open to a different solution to their heating systems. So we were very interested in finding something that would not change that much consumer habits in terms of heat consumption, but at the same time be a new source of renewable heating and net zero, to reach basically the net zero impact that every country in Europe has by 2050. So we thought it was very interesting to jump into this topic. Of course, it's still very, very uncertain, but we believe that the tests that are running, for example, in the Netherlands, there's a project called Mainland. In the UK, there are several projects that are being tested now. They are showing all of them significant results. So that's why we thought that it could be a good start for our project. Thank you for your question.
Okay, maybe one comment and one question from my side. In the slide where you showed your target customers, I've seen it a few times already. You, I think, correctly realized that commercial customers and property development firms would be the first and obviously most important ones. And I think that private homeowners will be then in the later step where the technology is
more mature or also cheaper to provide. But at the same time, that's the question part. You assumed a domestic market share of 70%, if I'm right. It's quite bold. What's your assumption of it, or how did you get there? Does the financial plan otherwise not make any sense, or?
No. We thought, no. We thought about that because of the. Thank you for your question. I say, thought about that because of the first mover advantage. So gaining the preemption advantage of the first mover, we thought that gaining 70% of that domestic market could be, since there are actually no players at all right now, moving like very early in the development process could be a great advantage for NORD in this regard. So yeah, we that's why we believe that catching up basically the 70% of the market was a reachable objective and something that could be done in this regard.
Okay, but then the 2.4% increase in manpower, is that enough for 70% market share? Is that correlated somehow, or?
We basically made some assumption based on the financial statement and the number of employees that was stated on the financial statement. We basically calculated the increase in revenues, and then we basically made a ratio by the increase in revenues on the total number of employees, and this was the number that popped out and the one that it made more sense. It may not be enough, but I mean, from very, very simple calculation, that's what we thought it could be feasible for NORD. And since the services are also provided on a long-term scenario, since there are inspection afterwards, and also basically a number of activities that have to be done once the services have been started. So it's basically the thing is locking in customer demand first, and then establish the position afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But with an eye to the clock,
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you very much, and you for your interesting questions. I think we had a nice discussion. If you got any questions left, I suggest that you maybe talk at the lunch later. But now I'd like to proceed to the next team.
Thank you very much. If you have further question afterwards, you have our LinkedIn code. The presentation.
Sorry for my shaking voice.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So the technique is fine? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, okay. Welcome guys, the stage is yours, I'm not here.
So, hello and welcome everyone. We are delighted to be part of the final presentation or the final round of the competition. Just not, Manuel and I would like to present you the production and supply of power paste as an interesting business opportunity. In the beginning, I'd like to give you a glimpse about the technology itself. What is the power paste actually? Indeed, then move on and present to you 6 key advantages of power paste compared to conventional hydrogen sources, which lead actually to low competition and few risks in the power paste business. Then Manuel will go on and address the main customer needs in the business in the energy industry, which actually established 4 markets, or we identified 4 markets in this term. However, I would like at this point to follow a more systematic business approach by presenting to you a specific use case with the first business partner, Shebach. And in this term, the finances, the costs, and revenue streams are presented. And finally, we'd like to wrap up the presentation with action steps with a recommendation to NORD. Now, what is the power paste? Power paste, language-wise, it's a new word. So it's a combination. You can call it a homophone or neologism. So it's the power, which is the element HU in it, and paste on the other side. As you can see, it is a paste. If you look at the chemical equation here on the right side, so the paste is the magnesium hydride, is the blue box. This is before any reaction happens. Now, if you pump water in a tank, it's the H2O, then the equation yields H2, the energy source that we need, and magnesium hydroxide as a byproduct. Actually, it is a non-toxic byproduct that can be disposed easily, problem-free. And now, if we want to look at the properties of the power paste, it has a heating value about 33 kilowatts per kilogram. So we're speaking 3 times more or higher than diesel. And it has an energy density of about 100 watts hour per kilogram. So it's 10 times more or higher than ion lithium battery. The key advantages of power paste, so it can be stored at 1 bar compared to 700 bar of conventional hydrogen. We're speaking about the liquid and gaseous for air. So you don't need any high pressure tanks anymore. You don't need any extra investment in it. You don't need infrastructure. It has a high energy density, as we have seen in the properties of the power paste itself. So you can store more energy in a less space. Let's say in terms of application in vehicles, and which means longer range as well. Now you can or the power paste can be sold decentrally, in a decentralized form. For example, at gas stations in form of cartridges. This is to the supply part. To the production part. To the production part is not a rocket science. You don't need a sophisticated usage of sophisticated materials or equipment. Magnesium is the main element of the paste itself, as we have seen. Magnesium is the 3rd most common element of the elephant dust, so it's not rocket science, that said. Customers can use it on demand, so whenever they want to generate power, they just need to pick up a cartridge and install it in an equipment or power generation equipment. You don't need to lay any pipelines more to supply the material. As said, it can be sold in decentralized form. And most importantly, it is sustainable and innovation. We've seen that the byproduct of the power paste itself is non-toxic. So it's powder. We also brought with us a benchmarking tool showcasing the technology differentiation, as we can see here on the left side, on the y-axis. So this is the paste. We have liquid form and gaseous form. There are already big players on the market providing and producing hydrogen actually in gaseous and air form, in large quantities, let's say, but none is producing the power paste. So if we look also on the x-axis, the national and international market, the power paste is almost in a monopolistic market in the national market, so speaking in Germany. So there lies the potential to expand to international markets easily and quickly, the way we see it, because it is a disruptive technology. However, on the other hand, we identified some risks. For example, the lobbying groups, or the lobbying groups in the political spectrum, or in the political stadium, let's say. So they want to first infuse more e-vehicles on the market than hydrogen. Sort of saturate the market with e-vehicles and then introduce or infuse the hydrogen vehicles on the market. On the other side, there are a few applications to power paste on the market. So speaking does not have a market yet anywhere in the world. I'd like now to give it over to Manuel to explain more about customer needs in the energy industry.
Thank you, Alan. So first I wanted to say, yeah, there are no applications yet, but Fraunhofer EFAM, it's an invention of Fraunhofer EFAM, and they have the IPRs of this technology, but they want to give the IPRs to the industry also, so that some people like NORD could produce power paste on their own. So there's one application, NORD works together with the German Bundeswehr right now, and they are using this power paste in these kind of power supply units. So we now identified here on this slide 3 main customer needs, which we found out by researching. And the first one is that in our days, like at the moment, maybe the Alta crisis, it was a few months ago, or currently the situation coming from Russia and the Ukrainian war, we need a self-sufficient power on demand. So what PowerPace can do is deliver power on demand. So the second customer need is what we have in the energy market. Alternative energy sources are needed, because when we look at fuel fossils, maybe they are getting more and more expensive, and for sure the Ukrainian war maybe is going on now, and it gets more expensive by time. And the third customer need is that we need also high energy densities to reach longer distances, for example, and this is why we derive from that the four target markets here. You can see the pictures here. We said that we want to offer PowerPace to power supply units here. Our use case is here Scheppach. You can also call it decentralized power supply units. The second market here is courier, express, and parcel. Here you can see the street scooter from DHL and from German Post. And the third market is e-bikes. What we have, for sure, we need also high energy densities when it comes to e-bikes, because you don't want to charge them that often, and you need to reach longer distances. The same here in market number 2. And the fourth market is delivery drones. Maybe you know it from DHL. It's not such a big market in Germany. I want to say the numbers now. But these markets are all growing. For example, we have about 20,000 power supply units by Scheppach every year. So they are producing it every year, 20,000. And here we have 100,000 courier express parcels delivery vehicles, for example. Okay. Now we want to show you the realization of the project here, and we made a milestone planning. First, let's show you a few steps here. First, we have to found our company as a GmbH, and the first step we need to do here is contact Fraunhofer IFAM. It's Dr. Felix Heutner. We contacted him, and he's very excited to work together with you as a cooperation. And you have to build up a B2B network. And the second milestone would be then finding applications in the market, like I showed before was the Scheppach case. Yeah, you don't have such the amount of applications in the market yet, but it's your turn now to develop those applications with your B2B partners, like for example Scheppach that we showed, or DHL. The third milestone would be that we have now our developed applications for PowerPace, and parallel over all 4 milestones, which is 12 months, we have to build a production line for 400 tons of PowerPace. And as I said before, Scheppach uses or produces 20,000 power supply units annually. And now we thought of how can we serve one time or only once these 20,000 power supply units. This is why we need here 400 tons of PowerPace. Let's now come to a short calculation. We want to show you the costs and the revenue and the break-even point for these 20,000 power supply units here. You can see it here. First, we have on the cost side production line costs. We assume that the production line will cost about 500,000 euro. Yes, maybe you think it's a little bit low, but I can show you in the backup slides how the production line could look like. And we have production costs of the PowerPace itself. And here I can say with each kilogram of PowerPace costs 2 euro. So maybe you want to remember this number: 2 euro production cost, and for each kilogram when you sell it to the market, you will get 4 euro. This is why you have the unit contribution margin of 2 euro per kilogram. And in our case of Scheppach, now we have here also material costs, yes, personal cost, marketing, maintenance. It's an assumption that we have about 1.55 million euro of investment. It's an investment because we get also money back. And here we have a revenue because a cartridge for this application here on the top costs 80 euro per cartridge. and then we will sell those 20,000 cartridges only once. And what we can see here, we make a revenue of 1.6 million, and this leads directly to a profit of 50,000 euro. But we had also here production line costs in the first year. So the production line costs will only be there in the first year, and then you have all the other costs going on. But this profit here will be higher the next years. And the break-even point is here 38.7 tons of producing power paste, so that we said, okay, let's build a production line to produce 400 tons. Okay, but as I said before, we have a production line and we have a personal cost at the beginning. This is why we need at the beginning about 700,000 euro to start up our business properly. And these are the costs I mentioned before. Okay, let's go to the upcoming steps, So if not, what you have to do now is contact Dr. Ing Felix Heubner from Fraunhofer IFAM. We called him many times and we had deep conversations with him. We also had an interview. And he is very excited to hear something from you, and he also wished us luck today. And yes, you also have to contact your first business partners. We made 4 examples of business partners, like Shepard is one example, and DHL is also one example. And you can find out what is your potential business partner. And then I go one step back again, sorry for that, because you have your costs. Yeah, surely you have costs, but the profit only depends on the amount of sold cartridges. So you have to find an application. You have costs, and then you have to find an applications to get to your break-even point and sell this amount of cartridges. Okay, and the next step then would be follow our milestones planning we had shown you before, and hiring 3 people. This is what we had in our personal costs. 3 times 50,000 euro we assumed, and we need 1 project manager, 1 chemical engineer, like for example Dr. Carsten Gerhardt, maybe, and 1 laboratory technician who can give it a go. And we also have some potential additional services here on the right hand side. I said we have to found a business and make a spin-off. And this is why you now can also certify the power paste, certifying through NORD. And we could also implement a deposit return scheme here for cartridges and offering refillings and also building a refilling network. Let me tell you one last thing. So now we have those pipeline stuff and all of this kind of stuff. Here, when we are offering a decentralized network, we don't need any pipelines, so getting energy from A to B doesn't need to go through pipelines anymore. You have several possibilities to move it from A to B because of those cartridges, and then you can build up also a decentralized network here. Okay. Yeah, thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, we have also backup slides, as I said. Okay.
Are there any questions?
Start from this side now. In regard to the adaptation of technical systems, because you just said, okay, well, just have to sell it to Shepard. Are there already some really technical solutions really using this in machinery?
Yes. At one point, Fraunhofer IFAM wanted to produce 4 tons of power paste by the end of 21. And I talked to Dr. Felix Heubner, and he told us that they are working together with Bundeswehr. They implemented this technology into these power supply units. So when you have a crisis, you can get this cartridge, put it into the power supply unit by Bundeswehr maybe, and then produce energy. And maybe I can show you how it looks like in the backup slides. Here you see it. Here, this is the concept of power paste, using it in a fuel cell. First you have water and power paste. You put it into a hydro generator, and then you will get the H2. The big advantage here is it's proceedable at 1 bar and 21 degrees, and not at 700 bar or minus 240 degrees Celsius. And then this H2 is gaseous, and it's at 1 bar and 21 degree, and then you can put it into the PEM fuel cell, and then using it as energy or whatever you want to do.
Okay, so in usage, you just have to then add this hydrogen generator.
Yeah, you have to add only this hydrogen generator. Then you will get directly your H2 in a form that you can use it in PM fuel cell. And one thing I want to add here is how a production could look like. You see it. This is the production of implemented in Fraunhofer. You don't need that big space. I want to show you here. Maybe we are talking about 400 tons now. Maybe you have to take more than one in one area. Maybe you need 50 of this, but maybe this room would be enough. Okay.
Yeah, and if I may double down on your comments, so if you want, you can use it actually in the power fuel cells as explained, but you can also have an ion lithium battery as a buffer battery or backup.
Yes.
In this case.
Yeah, like on this chart here, you see here the buffer battery. Yeah, it's a conversion of energy.
Any more questions for Julie?
You first. I have a question because you explained that the value, the heating value, the energy density of power plants is higher than the diesel or batteries. What is it compared to liquid or gas H2?
Yes, you have a higher energy density because it's a paste. It's compressed into a paste. When you have your traditional H2, you have to store it at 700 bar. So you have to compress it very, very high. Then you get the same amount of maybe someday, the same amount of energy density, but you have to compress this fuel. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to compress it here, so it has a higher energy density than H2.
Right, because you told about the benefit of having not to use those pipes. The group earlier said we already have pipes, let's make use of that. Now we have to build up a distribution in the end as well. Did you calculate that in the cost as well?
Yes. Let me address your point first, because yes, the group before said it, but you have also competition on the pipes. They are still existing, but you have fossil fuels and competition. This is why we said why we should use pipes, because let them compete for pipes. We have the power plants. So this was our point, but I didn't get your question. Was it the right answer?
Besides, I'd like to add one point to that. So, for example, the way I see it personally, that hydrogen will be used only in terms of heating in the industrial sector, or because the way I see it, people are looking, and private companies are looking to generate heat from more innovative ways. For example, using heat exchangers, installing them, and to generate heat from wastewater. We've seen this application, for example, in Aachen, in this, that place, the block in front of Centis. So they actually invested and launched the project, and it works, and it doesn't need any maintenance since 2014, 2015 from Starbucks.
The second question was whether you calculated the cost for a distribution network already into the calculation.
Okay. So we thought and we assumed that the costs are rather low. So we have to supply the power plants, sure, maybe you don't mean that. And for 1 ton, we said, okay, let's ship 1 ton from A to B for €1,000. But in the overall revenue, it doesn't matter. They are rather low. For a few, not for €1,000, but for maybe €10 or whatever. Like when you ship more than 1 ton, you have economies of scale, and then transportation costs again.
Because you're talking about pipes and large scale, this is one question: is this suitable to be used in large scales, space, or is it rather that you, because of with regard to the applications, are rather feeling it to be kind of niche product for niche market? So we're talking about the kind of mass market entry or kind of niche market entry.
And this is actually what I thought about, is to start from a bottom-up approach in the market by using economies of scale simultaneously. For example, in Germany, if you target or use or have DHL as a customer in the beginning, you have a large quantity of vehicles that need to be built and use this paste. So using economies of scale and beginning from the bottom to the top.
You can reduce your risk, and you have always a kind of state of uncertainty. But with going on business, you will reduce the uncertainty and get into new markets like DHL, for example, the next step, and incrementally build it up. But for sure, it's a disruptive technology, and good question. And that's what maybe there are applications and markets. You can scale up easily, but as I said before, it's all scalable and all growing markets, and you have 20,000 power supply units, and you serve them only once. So when you sell only once, 20,000 units, you will make a revenue of 1.6 million, and surely you will sell it more often than only once a year. Okay.
Maybe to answer this question, also scalability, of course, is a question, but you showed the applicability in drones and electric bikes and stuff like that, but I'm not an engineer. But my stupid question is, does this all fit in a drone? Like a generator, a fuel cell, and the electronics, and water and power based? Because right now you would only have the battery, which is already heavy enough.
Yes, you don't need a battery. You have here on this side a powertrain. So you're producing electric energy and then directly antreiben your vehicle. And we found in research articles and together with Fraunhofer that these are main markets for this paste right now. But future would also be small cars in cities maybe. You don't need to drive that long distances maybe, or you can drive longer distances with this pace, but it has also applications in small cars. This is what we read in research, yes, but we focus on these 4 targeted markets, and let's stay here.
But at the same time, production is not enough, because you also have to stimulate the market somehow, because at the moment,
there are, sorry that I interrupt you, we figured or we analyzed the customer needs, and because of this customer needs, there are markets.
But yes, but there are not applications. So you're proposing the production and the development and shipping, for example, of course, but who's doing the machines necessary that can be powered by farm-based?
Yes, and this is now together cooperation together with NORD and your business partners. So you have to call NORD and develop together with your business partners the applications that you can use power-based. So as I said before, NORD did it with so Fraunhofer did it with Bundeswehr. Also in applications like supply units, power supply.
So thank you. One last question.
Sure. About the byproduct that you mentioned, that it's basically non-toxic powder. So what? Microplastic is also non-toxic, but I wouldn't say that it's just poses a problem. So if your proposal takes off, can we expect powder dunes, dozens of powder dunes on this planet, or what are you going to do with this powder?
That's actually a good question. You can actually save the powder, and then from the exhaust to a specific compartment. It doesn't have to be necessarily big or small or medium. So it depends on the machine you are working on. So just build a compartment and filtering, for example, and a filter that filters all this powder and keeps it in this compartment in the vehicle.
Yeah, but it will get more and more and more and more.
Yes. We found out that it's not harmful to the environment, and so plastic is harmful to the environment, and this powder not. And yes, maybe we can also develop or return scheme of this powder also. This would be a solution. But as in every day's business, you just have to find solutions when there's a problem someday. Yes, when it comes to a problem, this is my
I think it's. I think it would be good to think in terms of circular economy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
This application is a checklist with guidance to help the pipeline operator succeed in the transformation of these pipeline conversions. Exactly. What are the main strengths and offerings we get through this service? Well, first of all, we get to offer our first training within 3 months and being able to gain quick wins from a financial point of view. On the other hand, we designed this service so that we can leverage the capabilities of the TÜV NORD. We would work together with the TÜV Digital Academy as well as the TÜV software development area, and sparing a lot of money considering the fact that we wouldn't work with external partners. Okay, now that I gave you a quick preview of the service idea, Helen is going to go through today's agenda to talk all the details of the service idea.
Yes, like Agustin said, I will talk about today's structure of the presentation. First of all, we will talk about the motivation for our idea, and then we will also talk about our market analysis, which we really put a lot of effort in. And of course, then we will describe our service idea in more detail and also talk about financials and a concrete implementation case. And then in the end, we will give an outlook and also conclude our presentation. Yes, on this slide, you can see the motivation for our service. So right now, as we all know, climate change is happening, triggered by increasing temperatures. And because of this, a shift in thinking towards more sustainability is taking place in society. And of course, we can use hydrogen to substitute fossil fuels. And of course, hydrogen has been around for a really long time, but right now it's the right timing to use hydrogen because there's an overlap of market pull and technology push. And as you can see on this timeline, we are now in the market ramp-up phase for the hydrogen economy. And yeah, it's really essential for TÜV NORD to be part of this. Now I will talk about our market analysis. So we decided to do semi-structured interviews with several German pipeline operators. So we interviewed all of the pipeline operators you can see on this slide. And well, we did this to really understand the customer pain points the pipeline operators have to face nowadays. And I will talk about the pain points we found right now. So the main problem is that the pipeline operators face a lot of uncertainties because they haven't worked with hydrogen for a really long time right now. And also, in order to transform the pipeline, they have to collect several documents for an expert appraisal. However, they do not know which exact documents they need, and they are still in a learning process. And also, this is why they are sometimes missing documents, which is why the transformation process gets slowed down a bit. And then additionally to these problems, all of the pipeline operators mentioned the lack of digitalization in their companies. So this is also what we focused on. Yes, on this slide are some of the most significant quotes the pipelines operators mentioned. And the main message is that they have not worked with hydrogen for a long time, so there are a lot of uncertainties, like I mentioned. And also they said that there's a lack of experts right now, and these are the reasons why there's such a high demand for trainings in this field. On this slide, I want to talk about our final service idea. So of course, we also had to take into consideration what NORD can offer, and we decided to concentrate on knowledge exchange and trainings. And so we want to target the trainings directly at the pipeline operators. The first one being called Working with H2 Basics, and the second one being called Conversion of Pipelines based on DVG 409. And then also additionally, we want to do an application, and the centerpiece of this application really will be the checklist in accordance to the DVG 409 rule book. On this slide, you can see an overview of the trainings we want to do. So the first training has an onboarding and a marketing function. And the topics will be an introduction to the topic of hydrogen, and also what are the characteristics of hydrogen, and also what are the sources of danger when handling hydrogen. And then the second training will be a bit more specific, and also the application will be demonstrated in this training. And this is really for the pipeline operators to understand the G409 rulebook, and it's a step-by-step process through this rulebook. And what's important to mention is that for both of these trainings, a certification will be granted after participating. And also, we decided to do it both in digital and present format. And we want to work together with the NORD Digital Academy to develop the application as well as the digital formats for the trainings. Well, we haven't really developed the application yet, but we have some design ideas on this slide. Here you can see an overview of them. So firstly, here you can see on the first screen that we want to have different fields. So there will be the possibility to look at the ongoing projects, which have the different pipelines which are being converted. And then there will be e-learning contents, and also the possibility to contact experts directly, and also of course the IT help service. And then when selecting the ongoing projects, we can see an overview of the different projects, and also the status of the green. And then when selecting one of the projects, there are the different fields according to the paragraphs of the DVG 409 rulebook. So for example, there are the different establishments, operations and maintenance of the existing pipelines, so the natural gas pipelines. And there's also the category for the hydrogen suitability of the gas pipeline, and also an opportunity for sampling. And then when selecting one of these categories, the pipeline operators will have the chance to directly upload their documents, and also different pictures of their pipelines for sampling. And also they will have an overview of internal appointments and the possibility to contact experts.
Exactly. Well, after having presented the service idea in a more detailed way, we're going to go through the numbers. It's important to say at this moment that we run some different scenarios. Right now, we're going to focus on one scenario where the HydroHub and the TÜV NORD group gets one training of each kind per month with a number of participants of 30 and with an app price of 100 euros per month. So as you can see on the left side, the revenue streams, we got the two trainings. The training number 2 costs the double of the first one, coming to a sum of almost 600,000 euros. For the cost, we actually focus on the personnel who will need to develop the service idea and to develop these trainings, and as well as the app. We actually took three staff member who would be in the management position, each one earning 70K, down to IT responsible, one marketing responsible, and 2 assistants. Well, this being said, we could achieve profit only by focusing on the personnel. Of course, there are other assumptions that could be taken when it comes to cost streams, but this is a first preview of how it could look like. Well, we work with Cascade as one of our interview partners, and we even got to present our service idea to them, and they actually told us that they are working on the first conversion project called Midal Süd. This is the first conversion project, although they are already screening over 90 pipelines to be converted in the next years, already confirming our market research assumption that there is a market for the conversion of pipelines. Some facts to this use case and Cascade as a firm. You can see the revenue stream they had on a couple of years ago. You can also see that they are a big company, not the biggest one in Germany though. But most important is that as well as other companies, they are working on research and development programs to get to achieve hydrogen hubs all along Germany. When it comes to the development of the service idea, what we did was divide it into trainings and the application. And as I said in the beginning, the executive summary, we would like to pursue the development of idea internally, working with the Digital Academy and as well as the TÜV internal software development, so that we can spare costs and use the internal expertise and capabilities. And for the trainings, we would actually need to go further into detail, defining the content and the format. There we would use the expertise of the TÜV NORD Group Digital Academy, as well as we would work, of course, with an expert according to the Gasbochdruckleitungsverordnung, which is the expert we need at the end of the day to be able to put hydrogen in these pipelines. On the other hand, for the application, we would also try, as I stated, to work with internal TÜV capacities, and then we also would like to work with Cascade to get some feedback on their needs and to develop this checklist, which is actually the main point or the center of our service, to facilitate the conversion process with a digital solution. Of course, at the end of each training, we would also like to promote the HydroHub and the TÜV NORD Group as one of the key players in this hydrogen ramp-up. When it comes to the implementation plan, we would like to achieve this service development within this year, and the main goal would be to have the first training within the 3 months. Of course, the team building is an essential part of the service development, as we propose with 3 managers, 2 IT guys, 2 assistants or marketing specialists. And at the end of the day, the main goal would be to get the second training and the application before the end of 2022. And when it comes to the outlook, we actually could summarize it this way. The main opportunity and the biggest strength of this service idea is that we could actually use the capabilities and expertise of the TÜV NORD. TÜV NORD is known for its safety aspect, for its digitalization and innovation. And what we want to do is use these internal areas that are already there in TÜV NORD so that we can spare costs in the development phase. On the other hand, the main risk is that other companies and competitors like the TÜV Süd, which would be the main competitor, also develop these kind of services in Borg and App. And when it comes to the limitations of our service, the financial planning was our weakness, since we didn't get to really get to know which capabilities we have already and how the price would differentiate if we work with external partners. Coming to our conclusion, The integration we found when we had the interviews with the pipeline operators and we did our market research is that there is a lack of digitalization in the conversion process. There is a lack of experience and know-how, and the pipeline operators need guidance. They also need a guarantee that the laws and they need a guarantee that the process of conversion is going to be accepted at the end of the day so that they can inject hydrogen on the pipeline. What we offer through this training and the app is a clear roadmap for conversion, a digital integration of solutions with a project management tool, as you saw in the design app. In the design of the app, we could also upload pictures and documents and also track the status of the pipeline in real time. And we can also guarantee the approval of the standards based on our service on the DVGW 409. Thank you very much for your attention. We would love to answer your questions.
Yes, thank you very much for the interesting approach. That's on the slides. Now I'd like to continue this question.
Thanks a lot for this recommendation again, for this quite clear plan for developing and training and the app. A similar question like the other group before. Now we are talking about pipeline operators. This is only one of the two groups. Why have you selected the pipeline operators from your point of view, the first target group is the entire economy for training?
Because it's the most cost-efficient method of transportation that we have to the actual day. And when we think about the infrastructure, the hydrogen infrastructure, we also have to think about the industries we're working with. And we could also use other methods to transport hydrogen, but we don't only have to work or think about the pipelines, but also the chemical industries that are working already with this pipeline. We would have to change a lot of the infrastructure. And it turns out this conversion is the most cost-efficient solution to transporting hydrogen. Therefore, we focus on it. At first, we actually wanted to tackle the safety aspect of the pipelines, but then when we talked with all these companies, we realized the focus should be the conversion process, because as we saw in the use case, Cascade and other big companies are going to transform the pipelines in the following years, and this is all along Germany. So this training could only be used, for example, in one part of the pipeline, because the pipelines are long. So there is potential to use these trainings, and you can also get revenue from these trainings and the usage of the app.
One follow-up question. You already touched it. You have touch points with potential customers, right, like GE or Terranet. Did you already get also some information of content on their needs, so what they would appreciate, what they are desiring in this form of training or an app?
Yes, so they basically said that any form of training is needed. So also the basic trainings are on high demand right now. And yes, also they all mentioned that the conversion process for the natural gas pipelines, the safety aspect is really clear, but for injecting hydrogen, it's not. And this is something they are now figuring out. So yeah, that's where we.
I would like to have that we, or at least we did notice the difference between big companies or the bigger companies and the medium companies. While the bigger companies even are building new pipelines, which are solely for hydrogen transportation, we could also target the middle companies or Mittelstand in Germany, since they are actually focusing on the transformation and they aren't betting on building new pipelines, rather on the transformation, since, as I said, it's cheaper and efficient. And when it comes to the training, as I said, the first training is more like a marketing strategy. It's there to acquire new customers, while the second one is the innovative part of our service, because the rulebook is like the Bible for these pipeline operators, but it's not easy to read and to interpret it. So they need this translation, and what we want to offer through this app is a roadmap, how to use it, and also integrate project management tools to set up deadlines and to be able to upload pictures and upload documents. So we could also facilitate the work between the gas expert and the pipeline operators.
Maybe the last question.
talking
about the basic training. How do you define basic? So when is basic too much of the basic, so that they're not interested in? So it's about just explaining first what is hydrogen, or so how to position it somehow in a kind of specific.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we're talking about the gas industry. That's also we realize the gas industry is a really old school industry. We also noticed that when talking to all these partners, it's not only not digitalized, it's really conservative. So what we like to, we also thought about this while designing or thinking about how we could, which kind of form this training could take place. That's why we also say we would like to do it in a presence form, since, like I said, really old school economy. And regarding the level of specification when it comes to the basic training, it's about safety. At the end of the day, these private operators need certification that, so that they can say these workers know how to deal with hydrogen and are not putting themselves or others in risk. That's what we focus on, considering the two NORD strengths, which, as I said, and you all know, are certifications and safety.
Yes, and I also think in the first training there will be contents like the characteristics of hydrogen and these basic topics.
Yes, I mean, it's going to be theoretical, but at least that's why we wanted to integrate it to NORD Digital Academy to design this course or seminar in an interactive way and entertaining way for this industry, which is new, or which actually their main business is not hydrogen, and which are now focusing on this new segment. Thank you. Any other questions?
Do you have a feeling for the total addressable market? Because it's a really niche market, or at least there are a million people working on gas pipelines today. So do you know how many operators or project managers there are, or have rough estimates?
Well, we have information. We have between 20 and 30 operators. We're about 3 days so that we consider them. And that's why we wanted to say with the training in presence or in digital form. It's not, when we do a training, it's not only for a company, it's for a pipeline sector. So we can really scale it up when it comes to revenue. So we are between 20 and 30 operators.
Okay, but how many persons could train? How many persons could you train in this area? Is it 10,000, 100,000?
Oh, we didn't get the number. That's part yet. We did estimate though that for training we would like to have between 20 and 40, so it's not such a big group. And it's feasible. We talked a lot with the state, and we got 2% service data to them, and they told us it's really feasible to have a group of 30 people taking part of this training.
First comment, I very much like the approach that you actually talk to the customers and ask them what they want or what they need. So this approach is very good idea. And I think by talking to them and by showing their answers, I think you pointed out a second service actually, because you said that there are also people don't even know what talking with suppliers, government or whatever, to get permits, for switching from methane to hydrogen. Could you see second service there, so to help the pipeline providers to get their permits, to consult them on the training part, and also consulting, first part?
Yes, I think the second training is kind of aimed at this. So we want to really describe the process of the school book and what documents they need. So I think this will help. But I think it's a really good additional idea to then later also consult with them.
I want to add, when it comes to this scaling this service, it's important to say that this whole conversion process is not only one document. There are a lot of tests and materials, and there are different aspects of these pipelines that are needed to be done. Some of these operators are internal, and some externally, or many big competitors who do. So when we talk about this service, this is in the second training. all the kind of tests that are needed to be done, they could also be done by NORD. And one of the strengths which I didn't mention, but also is use of the marketing, is the fact that NORD actually works with gas pipelines for right now. And we also not use that as a market entry, but also to offer eventually these tests we are needed for the conversion as part of the service. So scaling is not a problem when it comes to the service.
So you recognize this is service and this is permit service that you see in your market.
Yes, of course. We want to get complete in a service area, and then we could expand it and scale it, integrating solutions or even selling in these trainings or kind of services, which is totally globally feasible.
Thank you.
The last question from my side. I can just align with what you said that I like your approach and I can do customer first and try to figure out what the issues they are having currently. And that's where I'm a bit stuck, which is currently. So how long do you think will not be able to actually offer those trainings, for example, and at some point the conversions must be done, right? And how big is how many conversions are there to be done, and what time frame do you think this will happen?
Well, the main strength for our service area, the whole research process was marketing analysis and the users. Although SSK has 95 conversions. If you count each pipeline conversion as one training, number one training, number two, plus the subscription model, you have the revenues won't be a problem. But if you talk about like the quantity of services or conversions, it's hard to tell, of course. But as I said, Cascade in the middle, not the biggest company or the pipeline operator market has around 95 pipeline operators. There's one training per pipeline, right? Or even more, depending on the length of the pipeline. And you also have to consider the fact that they need certification to guarantee to the outside that they know what to do when it comes to safety. And this conversion actually is also a part of the safety aspect, because all the tests that are done are needed to convert this pipeline as a related to safety. It's hard to tell how many conversions of almost 2 years is this service could be offered, but the good part is that we could integrate with other services so that we can also expand or market about the conversion of these pipelines.
Do they also need these certificates for operating those pipelines? So it's long-term offering you can offer in the end?
Yes, exactly. Well, it was like this. The experts that work to the gas pipelines on, they need at the end of the day to give them the appraisal to the pipeline operators, and then they go to the local or institution so that they can inject hydrogen. So they do it, and this is a service that repeats itself. So there is a market, and we can offer this subscription model that's also one topic where you can get your experts to work in it, since there is a lot more possibilities that we could get in these few months of research.
Yes, also to finish up this question, I think there will be many years where pipelines are still getting converted, because right now we are in the starting phase of this, and there are pilot projects being done, but not many pipelines are converted fully, so I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Actually, we've got some minutes left, so if you have any more questions concerning the case of University to ask them, because this is a guest, then some words, and he's going to join us at the 12. So, indeed. First comment, and then the question is,
not only for Germany, right? I think you could potentially here also be talking about other countries that also have pipelines and that are not, let's say, that advanced in terms of regulated market like here in Germany. So we have all the associations that are producing guidelines, we have discussions also. Other countries at the moment are only looking at Germany because they want to also learn and better understand how they can also transfer the knowledge to their local infrastructures. But the questions. Of course, one is always wondering, or one of the set questions, who might be the competitors? You already mentioned one or two that they are the traditional competitors, that they all have the same name, like the two. But who else would you see as competitors for this type of business?
Yes, I think the DVB people, of course, and then also maybe DK.
Yes, but the main competitors to DVB is also, but they are not probably oriented as the of course. DVB actually focuses on the regulations. They are the ones who are telling the gas pipeline operators and the pipeline experts what they need to do and are currently working on the regulations. The main competitors to and they are trying to do something similar. That's what Cascade tried to tell us, but they didn't want to because they didn't want to reveal too much information. So we should have an edge with these kind of ideas. At the end of the day, it's digitalization which will make a difference considering that we're talking about the gas pipeline industry also.
And what about partners? Who could be potential partners? Have you also there an information or opinion on that?
Well, it depends on which, are you talking about the trainings or the application?
Some of the trainings.
Well, trainings, well, when it comes to the design format, we would like to do it initially, and basically the knowledge we know is required from the gas experts. I don't know if you already have those kind of gas experts right now, how much the gas experts are. Well, that would be the first starting point. And the other kind of partners who need to get a good service is one of your possible customers to get feedback and to work in accordance to Kaizen. Each process of continuously bettering your service idea. So actually, your customers will be your partners at the beginning.
So while I'm asking about competitors, partners, and I've ended with partners, but what we could also have in mind, I think if you not only narrow it down to pipelines, but rather make it the next step, the further development, like general trainings or training portfolio, then I would assume they could also be part of this room here, like your university, of course, because you,
of course, the MPR is a specialist when it comes to training, and also universities and research institutions. I think those would be a really strong partner. I was actually thinking more of an industry approach, but since we're talking about the hydrogen economy, where a lot of research is going, we've seen done right now, a lot of institutes and the FPR, especially since it has not only industry but also consultancy and a lot of practice experience, it would be a good partner. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Like at this point, we have already 3 teams. We see a lot of diversity. We have seen a lot of diversity around the hydrogen economy. Like teams looking very forward into the future, seeing which kind of portfolios that could exist. Other teams searching for innovation to disrupt the market. And of course, teams that have more conservative approaches to see, okay, we don't have to do in a new part, but let's start with what we already know, what we can do. And so thank you first of all very much at this point for your own questions, for hearing. And at this point, I want to hand over to Merlin because we have a special guest.
Yes, thank you very much. It is not much time yet because we actually have special guests. Our chairman of the group will join us shortly via the Teams call, and he will address a few words here present. He should join us now in any minute now. So just so you know who will be here, maybe let's see what he has to say to us. She'll come for you. So we will wait a few minutes. Maybe we'll say like 5-6 minutes, and then we can go outside and lunch. You already know the drill from last time, so no surprises for you there. So just relax a bit, breathe, and let's see what about the process we just had. Yeah, you see there are already other people in there already. Hello to Analytic, and thank you for joining us. The last time you have been here with us, and also supporting you guys with the questions, and of course other members of the NORD that are willing to hear. So there we go. Let's see if everything works according to plan.
Oh, hello everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah. So it looks like I'm in front of a school class.
Can you see me?
Yeah, sure.
Hello, welcome to our student challenge. We are very glad to have you here. And now, maybe a few words you want to address to everyone here.
Yeah, so first of all, again, welcome to everybody. It's really a great pleasure for me to at least address a few words to you. It is my understanding that you are all participating in a kind of contest or challenge, which is part of our innovation initiative at TÜV NORD. However, I'm severely proud because you represent the integral part of my former university, because many decades ago I also was a student at RWTH in Aachen. This was actually my studies in physics, and I still have excellent memories. So this was really one of most interesting and challenging times of my life. Total freedom, nearly no responsibilities, only for myself as a student. But this cannot go on forever. So I think everybody of you is also facing the challenge on how to develop your life and how to somehow enter a professional career not too far from now. But it's really a great pleasure for me to have at least a few words addressed on the occasion of your student challenge. So I think everybody of you have got the message that also we as a testing, inspection, certification organization are really on our way towards innovation as an integral part to become at least of our company culture and our company DNA. And I think that the topic that you actually covered in your challenge, which was all around the Hydro Hub and how to actually propel activities within the Hydro Hub to a somewhat other level, because we started actually the Hydro Hub just recently. It was also a big endeavor for us as a company to first of all bundle all the different services which are located within different divisions of our company into one common platform. That's a big step for us, and that's why it is also extremely important now to think about how to actually structure a potential market launch of the Hydro Hub and how to really become a player in the really growing market of hydrogen-based services and concepts. And that's why I'm also very eager to learn about the results. I'm not able to learn them today, but maybe with the beginning of next week. But it is really astonishing how new technologies enter market and what fundamental importance they also get. I mean, this is more a very sad trigger point here with the Ukraine crisis and the Ukraine war. But hydrogen has to become very soon from now a major part of our German energy market. And that's why the work that you have done so far on this topic is of even more importance today and tomorrow. Yeah. So I think that's it from my side. I don't know if somebody would like to place a question or to.
Any questions? I think they are a bit shy today.
Yeah, this is not a problem. This is more the usual situation I'm facing. Yeah, but at least I see some of you smiling and having fun. I think is still one of the most important topics, also in your professional life, not only in your life as a student. Yeah, and if there are no questions, I would like to wish you all the best. I hope you enjoyed the exercise. I don't know actually what you get when you are an award winner or when you score high in this student challenge, but I hope it's something interesting.
It is very interesting, and maybe you will see pictures later on. So look forward to that.
Super, great. Yeah. So then have a nice day. I think the weather, at least when I look outside and I'm in the home office today, it is really fantastic weather, and so just feel inspired also by the sun.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, I thank you. Take care.
Bye. Yes, that is it. And then one. Thank you.
Let's start right at the background. Hydrogen startups are on the rise. In 2020, in Germany alone, 60 startups were identified in the sector of hydrogen. And it's interesting that about 70% of them were founded only after 2015, which just shows the dynamic in which the field is growing at the moment. And on the other hand, investments into corresponding startups rise equally. In the years from 2015 to 2018, about 12 million euros were spent into investments in Europe into hydrogen startups. But in 2019, about 30 million already were invested. And in 2020, over 60 million euros were invested into startups in the hydrogen sector in Europe. But now if you compare the 60 million euros to another 30.5 invested into startups in general in Europe, then we can see that there's still a huge gap and a huge potential, and that's why we suggest why the background. So, how do we bring these two together? We have on the one side investment in startup is growing and projects to invest in, and they're looking for some hands, but they may get the experience and other knowledge to access hydrogen startups. In startups in general, need capital, but also look for guidance and network to grow. So the link we present to you is the HydroStart. The HydroStart is technically a closed and fund, but it works like a platform combining three aspects: the technical economic expertise, the guidance, and the financial support. And for investors, this may be an instrument which allows them to keep pace of the time, but also have access to the newest technical developments. And due to the startups being carefully selected and support, we think that the chances for above average returns are higher than just investing into a single startup alone. Now, let's dive in and tell you how this instrument works. We will start with the NORD group on top of it, and I will add it to the proposed structure. So right below, we have the NORD investment company, which is a 100% subsidiary company of the NORD group. And this company allows to bundle activities in the investment area, which then gives the NORD access to new businesses and new ideas. As another subsidiary will be Hydrostat, which will be the focus of our concept. The Hydrostat itself will eventually form together with other strategic partners. This could, for example, be the public institution or private institutions, maybe the government or Bank Group, for example. Now, the Hydrostat company, this will manage to set up with individual funds over the years, starting, for example, with the Hydrostat Fund 1, which will be then the extra funds which invest money into startups, which is in the middle of just there. And then fund number 2 and 3 may follow in later years. And the investment capital for these funds will come from investors, which can be different for every fund. But this structure also enables the NORD group to invest money into this fund through the NORD investment company. Now, these were the stakeholder relationships, but this structure also allows to exchange knowledge and expertise. And this is what we show with the green arrows now. So, for example, the NORD group can give its technical expertise in the hydrogen sector to the Hydrostat, but also in general give its knowledge environment to the startups to grow successfully. And the NORD investment company, on the other hand, will focus on the commercial knowledge and instead will give this knowledge to the Hydrostat. The Hydrostat then can combine this knowledge, focus on or conduct very detailed due diligence processes to select one of the most promising startups. In order to give this, so the very detailed due diligence processes as a value proposition to the investors. And finally, the investors themselves, they don't just give money, but we call it intelligent money, so they support the startups also with their network and their expertise. Overall, we call this the Hydrostat economy, and now I'd like to go on with the individual steps to take in this process. So first of all, the team would have to identify potentially interesting startups, or many startups themselves apply for the Hydrostat. Based on the investor segment, that will be conducted commercial and technical due diligence, and when the startups pass this first check, they will be allowed to present their ideas to the investment committee. Finally, if they also pass this check, this test, this will lead them to the deal closing and to the identification of investment partners. So the 5 marks one of the most important steps in this process, as this we decide about the Hydrostat, also the startup success overall. In this step, we, together with our partners, have to focus on guiding the startups and helping them on their growth. Lastly, the last step is related to exit, which will start from about 2 or 3, maybe up to 5, 6, 7, 8 years after the first investment, which will be the main part for the main factor for the returns of the Hydrostat. It will not be the only factor, as we also expect during these years returns in the form of interest income. So, where does the Hydrostat stand amongst competitors? We conducted market research and identified about 15 projects. Competitors and clustered them into 3 subsystems. You can see these 3 subsystems on the left now. So these are the financial product, funding opportunities, and lastly, the hydrogen-specific hubs and networks. I'd like to give an example from each of these clusters to you. For example, starting with the hydrogen fund as a financial product. This fund is currently in preparation. So it's a project featuring big or large companies like Ebitda and Net Income, and it was originally planned for the end of 2021, but it's not yet published. Still, it's expected to have a volume of about 1.5 billion euros. And with this huge volume, it's possible to also carry out large-scale projects. And what's interesting about almost all of our competitors in this subsystem is that they were established in the year 2021, which again shows the dynamic in which this field, especially of the financial products and vehicles, is growing at the moment. Then an example for the funding opportunities would be the company Aachen, which is a venture capital company, and it's acting worldwide, investing about 1.5 to 50 million US dollar. Yes, lastly, an example for the hydrogen-specific hubs and networks would, for example, be the last one, the second last one, the European Startup Alliance, and this is what sees itself as a voice for startups in Europe in the hydrogen sector. Now, for all these classes, we typically work together in three, which you can see on the screen now, and sort them on the chart on the right. Yeah, on the right, to the side, yes. And we sort of respectively to their focus on the topic or their business focus. So either they have a high relevance to hydrogen, or they focus on general topics, or they have a focus on major companies or on startups. What you can see is they generally have a high focus on the topic of hydrogen or a high focus on startups, but they don't seem to focus on both at the same time, except maybe for number 8, which will be the European Hydrogen Startup Alliance. But we'll come to that in a minute. So having this in mind, you may ask, okay, what's the USP then of the hydrogen start, And on this slide, you can see that you can see the individual drawbacks and the strengths of our competitors, and you can also see that the European Startup Alliance, which is just at the lowest column, lacks in the opportunity to invest money itself. So that's why the USP from the higher side is a holistic platform combining financial support, network, and the specific topic of hydrogen. Speaking of financially, let's talk about revenues and costs in this project. And to be honest, to predict revenues and costs for the hydrogen isn't that easy because it's a fund and you don't have much comparative values. But we researched some comparative values and also thought about some logical assumptions to get there. And to do this, we analyzed the Untitled Chapter, which is a comparative fund in Germany, which is investing money into startups in general, like technological startups, and it's currently planning fourth generation. And based on their public available balance sheets and reports for the government, we analyzed the business years from 2005 to 2019, so about 14 years, to get our comparative values for our calculations. Now, the Untitled Chapter had a total fund volume of about 270 million euros, but we based our calculations on a low estimation of about just 40 million euros. And again, these 40 million euros can now be split into 20 million by the government and another 20 million by private institutions, for example, Ebitda and other private institutions. Now you may ask, what can we do with 40 million euros? And these 40 million euros would be enough to invest into 50 startups in the beginning, and each allowing about 2.5 million euros investment for each startup. And how is the hydrogen profit from it? So, an annual management fee of about 2.5% of the total fund volume would allow to cover all management costs of about 800,000 euros, which would be enough for a team of 9 persons in the beginning, including 2 management positions, a fund controlling team, and an investment team. Then, based on the our calculations of the Untitled Chapter, we estimated that an average yield of about 4.6% of the total fund volume would be possible every year. So, meaning in our calculations that we expect an average yield of about 1.75 million euros every year, plus an extra RWTH of about 5%, which would be 2 million euros in the first year. And these are calculations on average, so over the whole time of this fund process. Lastly, you should know that we put our calculations in the backup slides and also in our documents, so if you want to have a closer look, please let me know. But for now, let's move on to the risk assessment. Because you may ask yourself, how risky is a fund for the NORD group? That's why we've conducted a SWOT analysis to answer this question. Let's start in the top right corner. So we thought maybe the NORD group currently has difficulties entering new markets. But with the investment company and the hydrogen, it would allow them to keep pace with the time and access the newest technologies. And below might be the most serious threat, because you may think, can this have a negative influence or backwards onto the NORD group in case of the failure of these startups? That's why we suggest to team up with many partners to, on the one hand, minimize the risk of potential unsuccessful outcomes, and also to spread responsibility onto many partners. But the biggest strength would be is on the left in the upper corner, that the NORD group has knowledge, this specific knowledge in the hydrogen sector. And we are sure that the NORD group can use this knowledge to select only the most promising startups in the beginning, and then lead to successful ventures. And this knowledge will also help them to help these startups growing and also to help them avoid their mistakes. And again, at this point, hydrogen will be supported by its partners and the investors and the whole knowledge environment. So to answer the question, should NORD and funds, doesn't that clash? I say no and give you top three risk management strategies. First, to prevent the risk of lacking in commercial experience, we suggest that the NORD investment company really focuses on selecting and hiring very experienced investment managers, and maybe instills NORD group DNA, so a very detailed and rather conservative look, to really conduct these due diligence in a very detailed way. Second, failure of startups. Just as mentioned in the SWOT analysis before, it's important to make sure that we combine the commercial and technical expertise to screen startups from the beginning, to minimize the risk and also lower the number of potentially unsuccessful startups. And third, the risk that the hydrogen may in general lack market acceptance. We suggest to implement a carefully thought out market, but also marketing strategy to really start from the beginning right, and also to upfront identify the most relevant partners, to start with them in an early phase and to engage them with their commitment. So, finally, I'd like to summarize everything said before, and thus point out why we think that the hydrogen and the NORD group fit together so perfectly. Because first, the NORD group is a well-known and trusted partner. This would ease the way for them to get other partners into the boat. Second, the NORD group and the hydrogen feature extensive knowledge in the field of hydrogen, and this knowledge just predestines them to use this knowledge to support startups. And third, its working methods and the combination of commercial and technical expertise will enable these portfolio startups then to grow successfully, to flourish, and help in general the market of the hydrogen economy. Lastly, we think that these equity investments into hydrogen-specific companies will position the NORD group as a heavyweight in this hydrogen sector, and also leads to contribute to the overall company's growth. And with that, I really thank you for your attention and look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the presentation. I really love your idea. Fascinating. But I have a few questions on that. You did a very interesting comparison when you showed the competitors and where they're positioned. You said you analyzed the years from 2005 to 19.
Yeah, this was the hydrogen one. Yes.
Yeah, okay. But at the same time, during that, as you mentioned as well, the overall investment into hydrogen startups in 2020 was still very low.
Yeah.
So, okay, why would HTGF invest position itself in the hydrogen space in that time period? So, given this point, why do you think that acting as a venture capital provider, venture capitalist or a VC, might be better for us than becoming a limited partner, an LP of, say, the high-tech Gründerfonds, which is also an alternative, because assuming that they will also have noticed that the world has changed, and I think there is a new fund coming this year, I think they will shift the focus to the same topics. So, assuming this, why do you think it would still make sense?
I think because I still think that the high-tech Gründerfonds will not just focus only on hydrogen, because the thought of the hydrogen, the thought of the high-tech Gründerfonds is maybe just a public instrument to generally support startups in Germany, technical startups, and I think that's the reason they want to just focus only on hydrogen. And on the other side, I think that we see that there is no fund which is just focusing on hydrogen. Too many hydrogen. On hydrogen. That's why we think that this would be like a niche market for this fund. But yeah, and that's why I think you should, instead of supporting the hydrogen Gründerfonds, use the knowledge to really support just this specific fund. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, okay. But then a follow-up question. You were then saying setting up, we would be well positioned to set up a fund like this because of our expertise. But then you were referring to the hydrogen-related expertise that we have. Yeah. But setting up a fund is more like, would, at least in my point of view, require financial expertise, which we don't have in the VC space. Yeah. How would we overcome this? Or don't you see that as a problem?
No, actually, it's a problem. And this is why, let me just get to that slide back. Like that. This is why we, in general, suggest to create a new company before the hydrogen, which would be the NORD investment company, which would be a general instrument for the NORD to invest into startups in general, maybe not just only hydrogen startups. And of course, this company will have to be also started with commercial expertise. So this is something maybe the NORD doesn't have, but the NORD company should have this knowledge. And together with the NORD, within this investment company, the hydrogen would work. That's my question.
Any more questions?
Two questions. First of all, I think if we assume that sometime in the future, don't startup help for the hydrogen market. So the HydroStar company has a limited life cycle, right?
Yeah.
Thought about that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's why it says also Hydrogen Fund 1, and it's think about like comparable to the hydrogen Gründerfonds to just set up in 10 years another round of funds or like another fund scale. Yeah.
And then maybe a very general question: if we support startups in the hydrogen space with the expertise of the NORD, and then after a few years they are grown and they're successful, and then they exit the hydrogen start.
Yeah.
Haven't we then financed and grown our own competitors?
I think it depends on the goals of the hydro. Maybe if the hydro wants to position itself as well in the market as a producing company, but we think that this would just be the way to ramp up this market, because in the beginning we thought maybe we should just do projects and like the distribution of hydrogen or large-scale projects and so on. But then we thought, what is needed now is the moment like new ideas to start. So when many ideas start, also the whole economy will start. And that's why I think if we use the funds to support startups, we will have many ideas in the future as well. So I don't see it as a competitor. But it's a general one, not like benefit for but for the whole market. For the whole market as well, but not as well can have benefit as well through the investments in the hydrogen fund as well. So like a revenue through the new chance.
I know that follow-up question.
Have you also thought that apart from the entire mechanism, is highly appreciate, we also have made some thoughts and some recommendation on the orientations of startups. So, are there any specific fields that you recommend that the hydrostar should focus on? For instance, on the mobility or applications or pipelines?
Yes. Actually, I would say that we identified a topic to focus on. But we see that in the research of these 100 startups we identified, which currently are in Germany, or 60 in Germany, that they spread across many areas. I wouldn't, because it's already niche market to focus on hydrogen startups, I wouldn't suggest to focus on another part of these hydrogen startups, but to generally be open to startups in the hydrogen sector as ideas come together. Yeah.
Another question.
My question would have gone in a similar direction because I was wondering, first, thanks for the interesting point of view here from thinking a bit out of the box, but some those kind of venture capital funds, they need to have some kind of portfolio, right? Because if you have too much money in one bucket, you fund different companies which aim for the same, and then you kind of already bet on companies of those going down. And that's where I was asking something similar. How would you see this kind of portfolio in this fund in the end? How would it look like? Of course, there are probably different kind of companies who can interact as an intermediate, as a supplier, as in different parts of this value chain for hydrogen. Did you have something in mind for that? So, about which companies should be in the portfolio? How the portfolio would look like in order to have it heterogeneous enough to not have too many companies that actually want to do the same in this economy. Yeah. To be honest, no, I'm not quite sure how this portfolio should look like. But another thing I just thought of was the risk or the diversity because if we just focus on the hydrogen startups, they should also be diverse in their topics. To not just set everything on one direction of the hydrogen sector. But then I think that the chances for the hydrogen startup are even higher than, for example, for the hydrogen form, because in this is just like a closed area where we can use just this knowledge, and they can support, all the startups can support each other because they all have a contact point. That's why I think that the chances for all the startups in the hydrogen startup would be maybe even higher to live longer than in the general hydrogen form. As long as they have contact to hydrogen, or they will be able to support each other as well.
Thank you very much. Let's discuss the next scene.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for having us today. As we already noticed, I'm 10 minutes on here. Unfortunately, my teammates Nils and Emily did not be here today, so I apologize on Nils' behalf. And yeah, with that being said, let's get started. So the service idea that we developed and that we think would help the hydrogen market to ramp up quickly is called HydroWise. So HydroWise is a retraining service portfolio that is tailored to the emerging non-academic hydrogen club. It consists of two parts. The first part is the theoretical part, and then the practical part. And at the end, there's going to be an examination, and eventually certification will be delivered. It takes approximately 2 weeks in general to complete a standard HydroWise program, within which the theory takes place during weekdays, mostly in the evenings, online, and the practice sessions are held on weekends in Ludwigsburg at the TIW, which is the Technologie und Innovationszentrum für Wasserstoff, at which NORD is also a partner. So the facility is to be used. With Hydrowise, we target the German corporate training market, within which we identify two key customer segments. These are the managers in the hard-to-abate sectors who would like to undergo a hydrogen transition, and the second one is group of technicians, non-academic technicians, that are desired to switch to the hydrogen sector. So these two customer groups have specific pain needs. So I'd like to briefly describe each customer segment before moving to their respective pain needs. So the first group is group managers, especially in the hard-to-abate sectors that are interested in the hydrogen transition. They like to do so, which means transition to the hydrogen, and be able at the same time to retain their employees and retrain them. They are generally well-educated, rational, and they value high-skilled and hardworking. People in this category suffer from several things. The first one being the lack of skilled hydrogen workers in the market, and the relatively high cost of layoff and hiring employees. And they like to use the offer that are available today in the market, the standard trainings. Those come with several advantages, such as being relatively broad, not really job specific, and they are flexible, so they align with their employees. So what are they looking for in a training program? They need a flexible, job-specific program that is at the same time affordable, and that contains practical sessions that happen to the The second group is a group of technicians, of non-academic workers. They like to switch the hydrogen sector to start working there, mainly because of the monetary incentives it offers and the several opportunities. And they also value learning and self-development. When it comes to their needs and pains, they're relatively similar to the needs of their managers. And I think that with the Hydrowise provided high hydrogen training programs that are that meet their needs regarding time flexibility and job specificity, we would be able to respond to their needs. A big part of our research actually was focused on, or was dedicated to the market analysis. The main goal behind this market analysis was to identify the demand for our retraining programs that is highly correlated to the emerging jobs in the hydrogen sector. So one of our key findings is by 2030, there will be approximately 140,000 new jobs emerging in Germany alone. And this number could be clustered into two subgroups. The first one being production and distribution. It will be responsible for generating approximately 83,000 new jobs. And then we have the second one, the fuel cell components and applications. And to design our retraining programs, we need to take a look at the exact jobs that are emerging in the future. So some of those jobs are, for example, the hydrogen pipeline construction worker, hydrogen fuel transporter, or also the fuel cell workshop installer. And because, as we know, technicians just don't grow on trees, they need to be trained somehow. We identify 3 ways to train them and make them acquire the necessary skills they need. The first one is apprenticeships. They have the advantage of enabling them to acquire a huge expertise in the field, but they come with the disadvantage of being relatively long. They require approximately 2 years to complete. And currently, hydrogen is not really included in the apprenticeship curricula. The second way of the job trainings would be internal trainings provided by the internal experts. It's indeed a good way because it provides the advantage of being a hybrid. They know exactly what they need and they work on it. But the disadvantage here is that the resources are high for preparation and conduction. So this leaves us with the external trainings, being the best fit in this case. They have the advantage of being held or provided by experts in the field. They come with a high variety of courses, but one of their disadvantages is the high costs. Now that we talked about the market analysis, you might probably recall that TubeSuite or Quality already offer similar training programs. And I think it's worth it to take a look at the competition and see what they're doing. For this purpose, we reviewed 22 hydrogen trainings provided by 11 different providers that are either private academies or academic institutions. And for the topics that these providers actually offer, most of them are titled or are focusing on the basics of hydrogen, and then the rest is related to molten safety, awareness, and application. Then we move to the pricing and the duration distribution of each of these programs. So the price range today goes from approximately 200 euros to 1,350 euros, and most courses need less than 4 days to complete. So here we can sum up this by saying that the currently available hydrogen trainings are very broad, very generic. They do not include practical models, and they also provide the working hours of the technician. Now, after we covered the market analysis and the competition analysis, it's easier to point out the unique selling points that Ebitda offers. These are that the programs are tailor-made for the specific jobs. They're flexible. They do not apply to the working hours of the employees, and they also include practical models. This, you can see more clearly on the right-hand side in the market positioning. If we map the providers along the dimensions of job specificity and the relation with working hours. Here we can see that the truth node with hyperwise occupy and occupy segment, and it's basically the only layer in that segment. By now I hopefully managed to excite about the idea, but I think I have to tell you some reasons as to why truth node is the right provider for hyperwise. So here I identified 4 reasons. The first one being that truth node has a strong and respected brand in Germany, with tremendous expertise in the hydrogen sector. The second one is white spot. So during our research, we identified that, or we came to the conclusion that truth node provides approximately 800 trainings, but none of them is hydrogen-based or related to hydrogen. And on the other hand, Hyperwise provides hundreds of hydrogen services, but none of them is actually a training. Then we believe that truth node has already the right infrastructure to implement this. You're already using Ilias as a leader platform, Ebitda for execution software, etc. And last but not least, we think that truth node has the right partners to implement Hyperwise. They're already taking part in the TIW initiative in Israel, so their workshop facilities can be used for the practical sessions. And by covering more of the hydrogen workers, truth node would help the hydrogen market to ramp up quickly and to really achieve the position it deserves. And up to now, we talked about Hyperwise on a very high level. So let's take a deep look and see how exactly looks like. So let's take the example of a welder or a pipeline construction worker that desires to become a hydrogen construction worker. So he joins a 14 days Hyperwise retraining program, and here, as you can see, the theoretical sessions take place during weekdays in blue. They will be approximately 2 hours. And the practical sessions will take place at the last weekend, and then we will also have the examinations and the certifications revenue. So what will they learn exactly? So during the theory, they're learning like specifics for also high purity hydrogen, but also how to inspect and examine the different infrastructure and pipelines, for example, how to examine them, how to make sure that they are working safely. And this needs to be put into practice. So in the practical sessions, they learn all what they have already acquired theoretically. They will learn it hands-on, and they will apply it under real conditions. And of course, this comes at a price. I'm going to say value-based pricing model, where we consider three key pricing factors. The first one being the willingness to pay of our customers. Second one, the cost structure of the course. And last but not least, we have the competition. What are they doing? What they are offering? So first, the willingness to pay. Here, in the example of the hydrogen construction, pipeline construction worker, by moving to the hydrogen sector, it is possible for him to increase his yearly salary by an average of 5,000 euros. So we assume that his willingness to pay would be above those 5,000 euros. And when it comes to managers, if they don't take those courses, they don't make their employees under those courses, they will need to hire experts in the hydrogen from the hydrogen market and pay them a high hydrogen salary. And on top of that comes the cost of hiring and laying off employees. So the willingness to pay is higher than the willingness to pay of the workers. And here we can probably use a differential pricing method by setting a different price for the different categories according to their willingness to pay. Then we look at the costs. Here we divide them into two parts. We have equipment fixed costs and variable costs. For the equipment fixed costs, we estimated them to be low. If should not is going to be used in the facilities of the TIW, or we approximated these costs to 100,000 euros per course. And for the variable costs here, we got an inspiration from a project with a similar approach that was trying to kind of quantify estimated the costs of creating an apprenticeship program on hydrogen. And this is the results that we found. It costs approximately between 10,000 and 11,000 euros to create a course and to complete it. And this money is going to be allocated mostly to personnel. It takes approximately 55% of the total cost. And then comes material costs, IT, marketing, etc. And here, when pricing, we need to make sure that the cost will be covered. And then the last part is competition. We saw before that the price today ranges between 200 and 1,250 euros. But we still have the disadvantage of colliding with the working hours and being not job specific. So in this case, we could definitely set a higher price than what's already available in the market today. And from this analysis, we can draw the following consequences. The price would be above 5,000 euros. Unfortunately, we cannot use a differential pricing method because we have to prevent the migration of people from a high price segment to the low price segment. A manager could just send his employees undercover, and they would have the low price of the technicians. And last but not least, here we would like to reach the break-even point related to the variable costs by just having 2 participants per session. So this gives us a uniform pricing of 5,500 euros per course per person, and this corresponds to approximately 1,375 euros per day. Now that we talked about the cost structure and the pricing, we can move to the Ebitda and Net Income. But for this, we need to set a scenario upon which we will base our calculations. So here's the scenario. We identified 3 sets of parameters. The first one being investment and fixed costs. Here we have approximated the initial investment to be in the order of 250,000 euros. We considered opportunity costs, and we're working with a weighted average cost of capital of 6.9%. The fixed equipment cost for those will be in the order of 100,000 euros. Of course, it should not doesn't use the IW's facilities, and we use a linear depreciation model. The second one is a course number. So we will start with an MVP of 2 courses, the courses that are the most feasible and that have the highest potential. And then this number will grow with the growth rate of the hydrogen market, which is approximately 25% if we consider a moderate scenario until 2050. And by 2028, 6 jobs will be covered. And the last set of parameters is pricing and participants. We've already mentioned this before. We will use a uniform pricing for all courses in the order of 5,500 euros per person. And we will have 6 participants per session. And each course will be repeated 5 times a year. So we will have 5 sessions per year. And based on this scenario, we get the following results on revenue, Ebitda, and net income. So on the left-hand side, you can see the development of the revenue and Ebitda between 2022 and 2028. And on the right-hand side, you can see the net income in the same period. The key takeaway figures from those 2 diagrams would be that the break-even year will be achieved in the 2nd year. The average yearly Ebitda growth is going to be in the order of 23.7%. By 2028, we will reach, or in 2028, sorry, we will reach a net income of 553,000 euros. And this is equivalent to an annualized return on investment of approximately 37% until 2028. Yeah, and up to now, we have only covered the strengths and opportunities, but we have to be objective and also talk about the weaknesses and the threats. One of the key weaknesses would be that our retraining programs are very job specific. So we, by doing so and designing them in a job specific way, this tightens a little bit our customer segments. So our market activities need to be very pointed, very efficient. And one of the threats, for example, is the relatively low entry barriers of the competition. But we believe that if TripNord starts quickly, and it will be able to gain the first mover advantage, and it will be hard for the others to catch up. Yeah, and we also provide an in-depth roadmap to implement successfully HydroWise. Of course, we will not be going through all of the steps here, so we will show you one of the few of the most important steps. So at the beginning, as I already mentioned, we will identify jobs with the highest potential and feasibility ratio. Then we will launch an MVP with 2 courses. Then this process will be repeated, and the number of jobs will grow, as I said, with the growth rate of the hydrogen market. And by 2028, we will have 6 courses covered. Then we thought that we could globalize, we could penetrate other markets that are a bit lagging behind. We could use our expertise to train people from that market. And then it's also possible to license our HydroWise programs to other international partners. And I'd like to end this presentation with an appeal. When you go to the third speed of TripNord and Google Wasserstoff or hydrogen, this is what you find. I will show you in this video. There's actually no result. So we recommend to implement HydroWise, and let this be history. Thank you very much.
No results were found. Let's see if we can find any questions for Julie.
Maybe I start with the first question or comment. Fair enough, we saw. This is reality. So there are the lack of training portfolios, although we are also in the direction of going into certification, engineering, and training. So definitely identify the right spot. So therefore, I'm much more curious about your recommendation in concrete, what you would recommend how to get started. Because this is sometimes exactly this kind of bottleneck. So in which field, in which sector should we start? Because also on the last slide, you mentioned identifying emerging jobs with highest potential. In your research, information, do you already have found any kind of first indications where would be the highest need?
So we thought that it's very important to first work on the infrastructure of the hydrogen, and this will definitely help the demand in its growth. And we also looked at the similarities between the hydrogen sector and the natural gas market, for example. And we thought that one of the highest potentials are the most feasible ideas is to transfer the infrastructure and the capabilities from the gas market, for example, to the hydrogen market. So in this case, for example, if we retrain the pipeline construction worker from the gas sector, we could make it fit for the hydrogen sector, and this will help to rapidly increase the transport capacity and eventually increase the hydrogen demand.
On slide 5, where you had this great portfolio analysis of the courses and providers across topics. So the slide 5. This one, exactly. Okay, sorry. The majority part is on the basics, and we had this discussion in a lot of the formal presentations as well. So what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Should you rather go for another basic course as a starting point, or directly seek to dive deep into the selection of one of the specific topics like grids or pipelines or transformation or application or safety? As in our DNA, we have safety and also sustainability, let's say, implemented.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. So first of all, most of these courses are destined to managers, and in case of basics, for example, it's more to inspire them and to give them insights about the hydrogen sector. It doesn't really teach them the required skills to succeed in the hydrogen sector. So our idea is not targeting actually managers, it's targeting non-academic workers that really need to acquire the skills, the hands-on skills. And what we suggest is a bundle of services that is only tailor-made to that job. It only teaches what is needed in that job, not more, not less.
Could move one slide ahead. There you position yourself that would be like offering courses like with no relation to working hours. And then if you move another 2 slides ahead, you say that the course would take place during weekdays.
Yes.
So how does this combine? Because there is this limit in Germany that you can just work for 10 hours, and for the education, this also counts as working hours.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, I thought I'd mentioned it, but apparently not. That the theoretical courses will take place during weekdays, indeed, but in the evening, and they will just need 2 hours, to complete. And if we sum up this, we are still way above the average duration of the normal available trainings, which is 4 days. Here we have more than 4 days actually, like around 6 days if we sum up 12 hours.
Maybe a follow-up question. Did you talk to those companies to find out that they would prefer an evening course, or how did you come up that the upper right position is the best one compared to the other competitors right now?
Thank you for the question. No, we didn't talk to them. We assumed that it makes sense to kind of send your employees during their downtime, not during their working times, in the evenings. And this is actually how we came up with the idea. The standard courses are generally offered during working hours, So which means no work, no production. Yeah. So we think it makes sense to offer them outside of working hours.
It's a follow-up question. You said the other courses are much shorter and much less expensive. So if I'm a manager or a technician, why, from a customer's point of view, why would I choose something that takes longer and more expensive and that I have to do? For example, assume I'm a technician for Berlin. I work a 10 to 12 hour day every day. In the evenings, 2 hours of training, and then on weekends, 2 weekends, I have to travel to Duisburg to the training site. So then, if I had to choose, I would choose a course for €400 that teaches me the same thing in a short time. Why would I choose the other service?
Okay, so this course that costs approximately €400 doesn't teach you the right things. It's very broad, it focuses on one thing and ignores the other, but the high price is really a bundle, and it's thought to cover the required skills of a specific job. And when it comes to the traveling issue, the theory is taking place online, as I already mentioned, and I think it's worth it to make the effort to move 2 times in your life to get training, and eventually to increase your salary for years to come.
Okay.
Any more follow-ups or another question? Thank you very much. As far as I know, this should be the last presentation. I'm not going to do this. Everyone seems to be happy. So it should be right. Then, now, let's see what it says on the agenda next. The next step, exactly, jury deliberation. So what comes next? Our lovely jury now has 30 minutes to talk about all the presentations. For that, then we'll go to the next door. Behind this wall, you can see there. So take something to work with you. We'll repeat the discussions. And at the same time, for the students, my class will talk a bit later. You know from the kickoff from the other class, we will ask you some questions. But until she's here, you can just relax, breathe, take something to eat, get something to drink, and we will see you in like 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you all for the presentations. But I can say already. And until then, good luck during the class.
so many great politicians also.
Yes. Just before you begin, I have a question. So before I answer to the jury. So the first question would be, what are your impressions about us as students? So not about the supervisors. And the second question would be, did we meet your expectations? So regardless of the awards. Yes. First part of the question, two questions. First of all, two parts of the question. The first question would be actually, what are your impressions about us, even about the groups that did not participate today? And then the second part of the question would be actually, did we meet your expectations?
So first of all, thank you very much for coming. We're very impressed. With all of you, all groups, even groups are not participating here today. And we know that this is a very different topic, especially if we look at the things that happened a few days ago only that changed our view on this topic again massively. So, and not only our view. And even before that, so we, at least from my side, I can say, please add something to that. I think you did a really good job, and he re-extended. I know that it's a very hard job to have only a limited amount of time to focus on the topic you may not know that much about, and to test it in like a real-world scenario, and like picture your idea, and then from you that decides in the end, it's very good for us, you can go forward. We have manpower, and these are like calculations that are going on in our heads. Okay, this doesn't make sense, this amount of money, so definitely, and we saw from your deliberations or from your calculation that you had a very detailed look on the different topics that you worked on, and I think all of you exceeded our expectations, definitely, because at least for me it was the first competition or case study in this scenario, and from my point of view, from our first meeting to our first pitches to the final event day, I enjoyed it very much, and I was very happy to meet all of you, and yeah, it was a very cool experience.
Okay. Who of the jury has the honor to
I know the trophies. I think you're right, yes.
Yes. Before it, maybe you can click one slide.
Okay, one slide?
Yeah. The first slide, that's I would like to introduce to the last part of today's event, of today's finals. Firstly, a big thank you to all of you for having us today. I think we had a great day with great impressions of new services. You already mentioned the most of it from the NORD side, so there's nothing to add from our side. What I'd like to present to you guys, because that's because of your inputs and your ideas, is that the best of them are going to be awarded. With some exciting prizes, which you can see here on the front table, and something to read for you, maybe for our guys from abroad when heading home. I think you're going home tomorrow, if I'm correctly. A bit of lecture for this, that you can have a look at it. And finally, a small present from our side, from RWTH Aachen side. And these are the main points from for the announcement of the winners. And I'd like to hand over the word to Alexei.
Okay, so the next slide is already the third place, right?
But the winners aren't mentioned on the next slide.
Yes. Third place, which is apparently an Amazon gift card, goes to Spence. Where's music? Goes to Hyperstar. You get 2 trophies for one person.
With the decoration, finger left and the right.
Yes. Not here. Yes, let's take a photo for Annie. Trousers.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we have to get I think so, right? So what in the last?
Yeah, I have to.
I have to move it in. Oh, I have Thank you very much. Welcome. Thank you very much. Okay. Second place, which are most casting headphones 700, goes to H2 pipeline conversion. There's 120 each. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, the photo opportunity. Great. Specifically the hydrogen heating system services, I think this is one of the topics where we see the huge potential and the impact that we can create, not only as a NORD group, as a company, but also the entire society that also you involved within business, to also think how can we change established systems, also the households, to also build and produce the impact on our time. And I think this is here a very huge topic. You have pointed out the potential, some concrete recommendations, how one could dive into this really ramping up of business in one specific fields. So therefore also on behalf of the entire RWTH team, the NORD group,
Thanks a lot for this kind of impressions. This also imposes for us to think also different directions. It has been a highly pleasurable day today to get your thoughts. And what I only can also recommend you is we are a knowledge-based company. We are always also searching for new talents, and specifically also in the field of hydrogen at the moment. So feel free if you have any questions to always contact us. So we are either can directly help you or also can get you connected with our experts. So therefore, thank you once again.
Yeah, and if I may add, of course, there's always room for improvement. So I add this. You had the decarbonization. You had it on the slide, and you also mentioned it in the Q&A. And if you had started your story even a bit stronger with this, like we need to renovate, renew a lot of apartments here, houses, especially in Germany. This is a huge topic, and that you're trying to address this problem with a somewhat different. From a somewhat different angle, from a storytelling perspective, this would have been perfect. So then you, but it was fantastic anyway. But just as a, you have a great story, so make it even more visible right from the start. So,
thank you.
We need that.
Thank you.
As last word from us to everyone, not only you, but also to everyone. You put a lot of thought into these projects, into working out the topics, and in the end, we saw that in our discussions, you also made us think about possibilities where we could go, where maybe things are that we did not consider or judge differently before we had this discussion. So thank you for this.
Thank you guys from our side for your trust, just not in us, but in all of the students that you know also from your university. We really appreciate this concept that people still studying, people doing their own PhD thesis, people standing here in the middle of the jobs. This is a very fantastic opportunity for all of us, and thank you very much for having us today here. And to the teams, you put in a lot of work and a lot of effort. We've seen this. Thank you again, and you did all a great job. Sometimes it's just small issues that make a difference, and you need passion and also a little bit of luck. So you did your best today, and you can be proud of yourself to be here. You really were all very impressive. I'm deeply impressed by your presentations, and we had a discussion in the room afterwards. So maybe a bit older than you. So I was just thinking that I would have been very happy if I had the opportunity to do stuff that you do and to reach that performance level that you have already achieved. So I'm now curious what is to come afterwards. But I'm really very optimistic about this. So it was really, I'm extremely impressed. Thank you. The next thing that will follow is that we will hold and catch this moment with a great picture with all of us together. And therefore, I would suggest that we meet outside. Because we have a nice sun today, and we don't need chocolate from our farming side. So more chocolate side. Yeah. I think